Hello, my name is Stephen Mayeux, and this is my video series on practical JavaScript, where I walk you through the algorithm challenges at freecodecamp.com. In this challenge, it is a doozy. This is one hell of a challenge. This is a challenge and a half. It's two challenges in one. It's hellish, but anyway, let's do it step by step, and I promise to deliver it to you in under 15 minutes. Okay, so no repeats, please. Return the number of total permutations of the provided string that don't have repeated consecutive letters. Okay, that's really important. Don't have repeated consecutive letters. Assume that all characters in the provided string are each unique. For example, AAB should return 2 because it has a total of 6 permutations. AAB, AAB, ABA, ABA, BAA, BAA, but only 2 of them, ABA, ABA, don't have the same letter repeating. Okay, so we don't have, like this one, it repeats AA, so we don't count that. And this one, again, here, it's BAA, and we don't count that either. So these are 2 permutations, and they don't have any consecutive or like repeating letters. So for this challenge, not only do we have to like create an algorithm that will generate, the permutations of a string. By the way, if you don't know what a permutation is, definitely check out the helpful link right here and read up on that. Anyway, getting back to this hellish challenge, we have to not only generate the total permutations, but we also have to check whether or not it has any repeating characters such as this. And we have to repeat, we have to return the number of permutations that don't have any repeating characters. So anyway, if you have no idea what a permutation is, please read up on this. And I also recommend that you check out Heap's algorithm. I've done a bunch of research on like permutations. This seems like to be like a very common kind of computer science interview question if you're interviewing to be a programmer. But anyway, Heaps seems like to be the most the easiest one to grasp. And I say that with a grain of salt because it's still like Heaps is still difficult to understand, but all the other ones, it's really, really crazy. It's kind of nice. This Wikipedia entry has like a graphical representation of like what's actually happening, and it kind of gives you an overview with like an example in this language right here. It looks like it's C or something like that. Anyway, it's said that it was. At the time it was created in 1963, the most effective algorithm for generating permutations by a computer. So we're going to use that for our purposes. Okay, so without further ado, let's get into this. I'm going to do it in the code editor just because it's going to be faster for us. Okay, so we've got this, we've got like this string right here. Okay. And we're always going to get a string, and we have to like rearrange the letters in the string, and that's how we create our permutations. So it's a good idea to make this into an array so that we can deal with it more easily. So array, string, not split. Okay, pretty easy. And for this for this challenge, we don't actually have to return the permutations. We just have to return the number of permutations that don't have any repeating characters in it. So if you want to, I'll comment this out. You can very easily create a permutations like a variable like this, but we won't need it to pass any of the tests. So I'm just going to say var result, 0. Okay, and we'll use this counter to count how many non-repeating permutations that we have. Okay, so we're going to need 2 kind of helper functions to make this work. One of them is a very simple. Well, it's a very short function that's basically going to swap different elements in the array. And if you read up on the Heaps algorithm and look at the example, you'll kind of understand why that's needed. Anyway, we have to somehow mix and match and swap things. So let's go ahead and create a function to do that. We'll call it swap. We'll give it 2 arguments, A and B, because we're going to swap 2 elements together. And I'll create a temporary variable, var temp, and I'll say array with the index of A. Okay, and then I'm going to say RA equals RB. So I'm going to swatch index B with index A, and then and then do this. Okay, so this effectively takes 2 elements of an array and it swaps their position. And we need like 1 temporary variable to hold that value in order for this kind of swapping to work. Okay, and then if you were probably thinking this permutations challenge, it sounds like a recursive solution. It totally is. You could solve it non-recursively using iteration. I think that's more of a pain in the butt to deal with. So we're going to use recursion for this challenge. A lot of the solutions you find online use recursion, so it just seems like such a good fit. Anyway, we're going to call this the generate function, okay, and we're going to pass it a number, okay, and in a moment we're going to use a regular expression. So I'm going to go ahead and create that right now. And our regular expression, it's going to check for the repeating values. Okay, anytime we have a repeating value. So I'm just checking my notes here so I don't waste any time. Okay, all right, and that looks good. I went ahead and I put that pattern right here in the Regex website, and I showed this to you in a previous challenge. But you can see I can just I can write some strings, and if there's any consecutive values, any repeating characters, it's going to highlight it and it's going to make a match. Anytime I do that. So that's the regular expression that we need, and I tested it out beforehand using the Regexr website. Okay, so we're doing recursion, so we need kind of like a base case. Otherwise, we're going to create like an infinite sort of loop situation, and we'll get a Stack Overflow kind of error. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to say if n, okay, the argument for the generate function, if it's equal to 1, and regex test, okay, we need to make a string, so array.join. Okay, basically, if this base case is at 1 and we have no repeating values in our string, I'm using like the exclamation point because if we have any repeating values, okay, in our string and we run this method on it, it'll return true. But we don't want that. We only want to save things that have no repeating values, so we need the exclamation point there. Then I'm just going to say result plus plus, and then if you're really interested, you could totally push to that permutations a method that permutations array that we have up here, or you can just console it out. You could say I'll just comment out here because we don't need it. So you can get console log.array.join like this, and then you can totally see all of the permutations that have no repeating characters. But we're only interested in the number, so that's why I'm not saving it to any variable or anything like that. Okay, so n equals 1 is our base case. Else, okay, let me go ahead and we're going to create a loop for I equals 0. I is not equal to n. Okay, and we're going to keep it incrementing that. All right, and then this is where the kind of recursion happens right here. We're going to decrement it, and eventually it is going to reach 1, and then that's when we push it. And then we're going to call the swap method. Okay, and we're going to do like a conditional in the swap. So the swap, it takes like 2 arguments. So the first argument, it will either be 0 or it will be the I value. So n modular 2. Okay. All right, and if it is not 0, in other words, if n is an odd number, we're going to return 0 for the first argument for the swap method. Otherwise, we are going to return I. And then for the second argument, it'll be n minus 1. Okay, so remember, so n mod 2, for example, if n is 4, mod 2, the remainder is going to be 0. 0 is a falsy value, so we're going to return whatever is to the right of the colon, so I. So if n is a just checking the time there. If n is an even number, okay, the first argument of the swap method is going to be I, so whatever we have in this for loop. If n is an odd number, it's going to return like a 1. That is a truthy value, so we're going to return 0 for the first argument of our swap method. And then the second argument will always be n minus 1. And if that just all seems like confusing to you, trust me, if you read the Heap's algorithm, it's going to make a lot of sense. I'm not going to go into detail, and explain like exactly how that looks like. The Wikipedia article is quite good, and I found this graphic to be very helpful. I'm just kind of interpreting the Heap's algorithm into JavaScript, and this is like my interpretation, what it would look like. Okay, so we got that going, and now all we have to do is just kick off the generate function. So we're going to do that right now by saying generate. We're going to call it, and we have to pass in a number. So I'm going to say the length of our string array. And then once we do everything and finish all the recursion, then we are going to return result, which should give us a nice number of permutations without any repeating characters. If I run this, Regex test. This should be Regex test, not text. Okay, if we run this, haha, to infinity and beyond. If you're a 90s kid like me, you know that's from Toy Story, Buzz Lightyear. Okay, cool. So, got a couple of minutes, and I spent a few hours, working on this. So a 15-minute video makes it seem really easy. It's really not. If you did this on your own, trust me, I understand your struggle. It's like really complicated as hell. But let me walk you through it one more time. So we're calling our perm_alone function, and there are 2 helper functions within it. We got swap, which is responsible for swapping values in an array, and then we have this recursive function called generate. Okay, so we store, we take the string that we pass perm_alone and we store it in an array by using split, and we keep track of the non-repeating permutations with this variable result. Makes the function run a little bit faster since we don't have to actually, iterate through an array and count and test and anything. So just keep a counter. Makes it so much better. Anyway, we've got the swap function. It takes 2 arguments, and that takes care of the swapping for us. And then we kick off the recursion with generate, and it takes an argument of a number. So we're using the length of, or the number of characters in our array. Basically, we're just we're going to use this base case of 1, and then with each iteration, okay, we're subtracting 1 from n. So eventually we're going to get to this, and we're going to return like some array and join it as a string. And if that has no repeating characters, we're going to increment our result variable. Otherwise, if n is not 1, then we're going to recursively call generate again, and then we're going to swap a whole bunch of stuff. And that's basically what happens here. Okay, so if you have any questions, comments, or suggestions for improvement, please let me know in the comments below. That's all, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye. Boop.